I have a problem with diesel cars, and that problem is I just don't like them. People can tell me how good such and such a diesel car is until they're blue in the face, how many miles to the gallon they get, and so on. It matters to me not a jot. That noisy clatter at tick over, plumes of murky smoke coming from the exhaust, yuck. I'd rather ride my son's battery-powered motorbike, to be honest. However, my mind was swayed a little when I drove the new Audi A6 with a 2.5 V6 turbo diesel. Smooth, responsive and powerful, adjectives you wouldn't normally apply to a diesel car. So we've decided today to bring together the Audi A6 and the new BMW 530 diesel. Now, both of these cars sell by the bucket loads in their petrol variants. Audi are well known for producing cracking diesel cars. So, is Audi's crown slipping a little with the advent of the new BMW? We'll see. Now, as soon as you're in the Audi A6, you know you're driving a quality car. The cabin is classy, spacious and luxurious, and the finish is absolutely superb. All the materials used are top class, and that just matches the exterior design of the A6. Surely one of the most handsome executive cars on the road today. The A6 has a top speed of 133 miles per hour. It'll do 0 to 60 in just under 9 seconds, fast enough for most busy executives. And the ride and handling of the A6 are more than adequate. It soaks up poor road surfaces with ease. And remember, almost uniquely in this class of car, the A6 is front-wheel drive. Now, most people buy diesel cars for their excellent fuel economy, and here's where the Audi wins hands down. It'll do 28 miles per gallon urban, 53 extra urban and 41 to the gallon on the combined cycle, and that could give you, if you drive it sedately, a range of about 800 miles to the tank, and that is fantastic. So the Audi remains a class diesel act. It's powerful, it's responsive, and it is quiet at most speeds apart from at tick over. It's very impressive. How will the new BMW 530 diesel compare? The first thing you notice about the BMW is the power that this new 3-litre 6-cylinder common rail diesel engine kicks out. It produces 184 brake horsepower with 287 pounds of torque, and that makes it feel a lot nippier and more powerful than the Audi, although performance figures suggest that the 530 is only marginally quicker than the A6. With the BMW having substantially more power than the Audi, progress is fast and perhaps easier than in the A6. You can rev right up to the 4,600 RPM red line, and there's hardly any turbo lag, just a slight flat spot at around 2,000 RPM. Handling is sharp and nimble, and you can really hustle the 5 Series fast round country lanes. So I've had a chance to drive both of these cars, and they are both seriously impressive. The Audi will cost you in SE trim £29,000, the BMW in SE trim bit more expensive, £30,500. The Audi has the better fuel economy, the BMW more power. The Audi is the newer model of the two, but I think if it was me and I had to have a diesel as my car, I'd go for the BMW. Diesels are getting to be seriously good cars, and depreciation on these cars is excellent. Your accountant or finance director will be delighted if you bought either of these vehicles, and I think I'll keep the keys to the BMW if you don't mind.
I learned something the other day. I always thought hot rods were something that American teenagers built out of old Ford V8s. Not true. The term comes from the 1920s in Britain when a Rolls-Royce engineer was asked to develop a racing engine for an air race. And he got 1,500 horsepower out of an engine that had previously only developed 800. His name, Rodwell Banks, hence Hot Rod. This is a name that's much more familiar, Plymouth. And this is the Prowler. It's the only hot rod made by a mass manufacturer. When I say mass manufacturer, they're going to make 3,000 of these things, and Plymouth say there's currently 30,000 on the waiting list. So, why do so many people want a car like this? The answer, it's dramatic good looks. I mean, it really stunned the motoring press when it was first shown at the 1996 International Motor Show. Since then, only 3 have come into the country. This is one of them, and there's going to be no more either, because SVA, Special Vehicle Approval, simply will not cope with the way the lights, the bumpers and the front wings are organised on this car. And Chrysler, who make Plymouth, say they're not prepared to compromise and change the car just for British law. So this is as many as you're going to get. The concept is simple. You take the classic lines of the old American hot rod, an aluminium chassis, aluminium independent suspension front and back, a 3.5 litre V6 engine chucking out something over 220 brake horsepower, 4-speed automatic transmission, and there it is. The essence of the old hot rods was their simplicity, and despite its dramatic looks, the Prowler hasn't really changed any of that. So I remember seeing this at the 1996 show. I mean, how come you've got one here?
Well, I saw it at the 96 show as well. It was hanging up, if you remember, on some sort of racking. Fell in love with it there. And there's a friend of mine who deals in performance cars in Canada. I happened to be talking just a while ago and said, if you see a Prowler, can you get one for me? Expecting a 2-year wait. And a week later he came back and said he had one for me.
Is it a rude question to ask you what you paid for it?
Yeah, just a little.
A slight premium?
Yeah, just
a
big premium, a big premium.
Any trouble getting it to be legal on British roads?
Nothing major. We spent about £1,000 on it, on having the lighting altered and changed around, but nothing major, nothing major.
So David, the only one in the country, what's it insured for?
It's insured for £80,000.
And you're prepared to let us drive it?
Yeah, sure.
And it does go as you imagine an old hot rod Ford really would. It's quite funny looking into the eyes of drivers coming the other way as well, because they perceptibly widen as you come round the corner. Chrysler claim that this has European standards of steering, road holding and handling. Not quite sure where they get those European standards from. It's very light aluminium chassis, aluminium suspension and a composite body shell means the whole thing is very light. So even though it's a V6, it's a half go. This automatic transmission is interesting. It converts to a sort of slap shift and you can go up and down through the gears, just bashing it either way. Bit frightening on the move because with the left-hand drive here you simply cannot see that offside front wheel and the car's wider than you think. Now if you did come to the top of the waiting list in the States you could drive away in your Plymouth Prowler for around £26,000. If you wanted to buy this, which is the only one in the country, it's £80,000. I know exclusivity comes expensive, but that's very expensive. Would I like one? Well, I have to say that a wet Monday in Essex doesn't really compare to a sunny day down the King's Road. But even so, can't resist one more drive.
me Mr. Lucky, because the other day I got an invitation from Citroen and they said, Howard, how would you like to come along and drive one of our vans? Vans, I said, I don't drive vans. But the more they talked about it, the more I liked the sound of it. And you might like the sound of it too. Listen to this. Off we go. This is the Citroen Berlingo Electrique. The Berlingo Electrique has a range of about 50-60 miles before you need to plug it in and recharge it. And it's lovely to drive. It really has got a bit of poke about it. Now that's what I call silent running. It really is great fun to drive. And because it's electric, look at this. It's just as quick in reverse. Whee! The Citroen Berlingo Electrique is powered by 4 battery packs. One of them is to be found under the bonnet and the other 3 under the floor, and it runs off 150 volts DC. But why does an electric car have a petrol tank? Actually, it's got to be one of the smallest tanks around. It only takes 5 litres, and it's used to power the heating system inside the car. Otherwise, all you have to do is plug it into a domestic power supply, and it costs just £1 to charge the whole thing up. The bad news is, it takes 10 hours.
It's been a long, hard winter for the UK's car dealers. Sales have been depressed, and that's partly because of this. No, not this, the weather, this, the number plate. Buyers are thought to be confused about the new system of registration plates, which is introduced in early spring. But this could mark the end of the motor industry's problems with the traditional boom and bust, with the annual rush for customers to be first on the road with their car with a new number plate. But will it? Take the travel industry, for instance. Now, traditionally, they have one big boom every year when we all go on our annual holidays together and at the same time. But it differs from the motor industry for several reasons. For a start, a travel agent doesn't have to invest millions of pounds in stock and then risk it sitting around unsold in a field somewhere. And this is a genuine market-led boom. It's a market-driven and market-created thing. It's not artificially created as it is with the motor industry. Ooh, Caribbean. That'd be a good idea. The industry hopes that the new system will bring it into line with something like the clothes industry, where there are 2 big sales bursts a year. In the case of the clothes industry, those are in winter and in summer. In the case of the motor industry, those would be in March and in August, when the new plates come out and there's a bit of a blip again. And that will make it a lot more easy to control and to manage on the part of the dealers, particularly when you've got stock to think about. This, of course, is where it all becomes very serious, on the forecourts, where dealers have to invest millions of pounds in their stock and plan in such a difficult market. They hope that the new system will simplify it. It is a gamble, though, for the dealers, because far from spreading the sales out throughout the year, it could eventually reduce them. People who've previously replaced their car every year just to get the number plate that so readily identifies it as brand new have no incentive to do so. They might buy every 2 or 3 years, which means less sales. And it could be that the market has already realised this. Sales of S-Reg in January have been down enormously, and that might be because people are shying away from S-Reg because they fear the damage that the new system will do to the residuals of their car. So, what are the new number plates actually going to look like? Well, probably a bit like this. Well, a bit. There'll certainly be a group of letters, a group of digits, and another group of letters. Interestingly, there are tests already underway to see which is the most memorable, and the police are quite interested in this. Whether it's better to have the 2 letters at the beginning and the 3 at the end, or the other way around, 3 at the beginning and 2 at the end. Whichever way it's done, there's no doubt the new plates are not going to make it as easy to tell straight away the age of a car. And that means, of course, for those people who, God forbid, have to replace the Merc every year, you don't want to be out of date, well, there'll be no point. And of course, there'll be no point in putting a private plate on it either. The old system of prefixes and suffixes was introduced originally to give a boost to what was then actually quite a small industry. It was hoped that it would add to the natural sales blip in January in the new year, with another sales blip in August when people wanted to buy their car with the new plate, thus spreading sales out over the year. The police quite liked the system as well because it made number plates on cars easily identifiable and easy to remember. The problem was the whole thing's grown out of all proportion. The industry is now faced with an enormous sales blip in August. Dealers are forced not only to stockpile and prepare all of their stock ready for about 25% of their sales in just 1 month, but also at the same time, all the cars they sold the previous year are coming back for their annual service. It'll be years before we know for certain whether the new system has been a success, but as the old one had become hyped out of all proportion, it was due for replacing. In the short term, there might be a bit of discomfort for the dealers, but in the longer term, for us, the car buying public, I'm sure it will be a positive move. People will buy cars when they want them, and the price of cars second-hand will be a factor of the age, condition and mileage of the car.
There are lots of good reasons to drive a Volvo. Sensible reasons, like safety, comfort and reliability. But looks, forget it. You buy a Volvo in spite of, and not because of its looks. Don't you? Well, not anymore. Say hello to the C70 Coupe, a sexy Volvo with swoopy lines. A car that's billed as the Volvo you want, not the Volvo you need.
It's fair to say that this is the first new, truly desirable Volvo in over 20 years. Its designer, Peter Aubrey, was given a blank sheet of paper to design the kind of car that he'd like to cruise in.
It's a coupe to rival the best of the bunch, a car with sex appeal, one with the style you'd expect from something that claims to be a genuine Gran Turismo.
The Gran Turismo had its heyday in the 1950s. It was a car to carry you and your luggage to your villa in the south of France, in comfort, style and elegance. A car that made the journey every bit as enjoyable as the arrival. So, can the C70 live up to that reputation? Or will it just leave you longing for the end of the road?
Costing just over £30,000 in its basic form, the full name is the C70 T5. And the T in the 5 lets you know that there's something quite special underneath the bonnet. This 2.3 litre 250 brake horsepower engine first appeared in the 850 T5, where it got a reputation for amazing performance, and there's no reason why it won't be just as hot in this incarnation.
As soon as you get in and turn the engine over, you're greeted by a rich, throaty welcome. You can get from 0 to 60 in around 7 seconds, and believe me, you'll have no problems overtaking in the C70, not with a top speed of 155 miles per hour. Now that's an awful lot of power for a front-wheel drive car to handle, but thanks to a collaboration between Volvo and the Formula 1 engineers TWR and their work on the chassis, the C70 has no problems in handling it all. It may be sporty, but the ride doesn't feel too hard. It holds the road beautifully and gives you plenty of grip through the bends. The steering feels taut and it feels direct. All in all, it's a driving experience to make you smile.
On the road, the C70 is definitely a real head-turner. It may not be the prettiest of coupes, but the muscular swooping lines are very attractive. It's fresh and sharp, and it's still a Volvo.
And the inside also reflects that heritage. The layout in here is almost identical to that of the S and the V70. It isn't flash and it certainly isn't trendy. What it is simple, well laid out, and it has a quality feeling. It feels rather expensive. The wooden dash trim is part of a £5,000 GT pack which is fitted to this vehicle, and that's crammed full of all manner of goodies, things like electric heated seats, climate control and even an onboard computer. And if you were to head off on your grand tour of Europe in the C70, you'd have plenty of room. There's enough space in here to seat 4 adults comfortably, there's plenty of head and leg room, and there's lots of space in the back for all the luggage. The backseat passengers may not relish the thought of spending hundreds of miles sat in the back of here, but it's far more comfortable than most in its class.
Volvo have gone all out to make you feel emotional about the C70. It's certainly the most desirable Volvo we've seen in a long, long time. It's not the most powerful coupe on offer, nor is it the most graceful, but it is the kind of car that you'd be very happy to live with. It's enjoyable to drive, you feel relaxed behind the wheel, and you travel in comfort. Yep, I reckon the C70 can genuinely stake its claim as a real Gran Turismo, and not just a saloon posing in a new suit of clothes.